Good morning, social studies families. Here we go with a social studies update, a little bit about what we have been doing, a little bit about what we will be doing. So here's the week that we just are finishing here on the 6th day of March. You'll notice that we started on Monday with our politics end of unit check starting. So we started the end of unit check that Monday. Then we had the day off for election day on Tuesday. We came back on Wednesday and continued the politics end of unit check. It was a long one today. The politics end of unit had 7 questions that they had to kind of attack with vocabulary. I added in a map and a timeline project. So it was a beefy project. So we gave them multiple days to work on it. We gave them open notes, so they had all their paper notes to work on. And I also allowed them to use our classroom textbooks, mostly so that they could access some maps and start to figure out where I was asking them to identify, they could use the textbook to use and figure out maps. So it was a big project, and that actually continued on into yesterday. So as you can see on here, I had politics end of unit continues, and then economics unit begins. And so what happened was, as students were finishing the political end of unit check, they started kind of slowly getting into our economics unit. They would work on the vocabulary pre-assessment, work on the slide deck, kind of early slides in the economics, kind of as other kids were finishing that. And that's what actually happened on Thursday. So the economic stuff that is up there on Thursday, some of the students started working on, but a lot of kids were working right up until the end of yesterday on their political end of unit checks, which is, this is just one class, a beefy thing that I'm now going to be tasked with grading. So that will be a project that will take me a couple of days, but I'll get it done as quick as I can. The barter bag game is happening today. So what's going to happen is this: one of our first activities in our unit on economics is to understand trade, barter, supply, demand, scarcity, conflict, negotiation. And so what we're going to do is a game where each student will pick a bag, a little lunch bag that looks like this. They have no idea what's in it at the beginning of the game. They will then take out what's inside it and make a register of what they have. So they'll keep a kind of an inventory of what they have. And they'll have things like straws and erasers and lots of little things that I've just collected from my classroom. And then they'll go out. We're going to go outside. We're going to do a trade game outside. Lovely, beautiful weather today. And students will be trading, bartering the materials that they have in their bag with other students that have different things in their bag, the goal being to get one of everything that's on their list. So they're going to start with maybe a surplus of something and nothing from something, and they have to kind of negotiate how they're going to get those things. And if they can get one of everything, they win. And what they'll find is that some things are very, very, very scarce. Some things are very, 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 very much in surplus and worthless. And so that kind of game will play out. There will be a graded reflection that goes with it. How things, basically it's questions about, well, how did things go? What was scarce? What wasn't scarce? What was easy for you to do? What was difficult to do? What's trade? How does trade work? Those kinds of questions that kind of have them thinking about what they did in the game. I'm going to try something. We'll see how it works. Who knows? On Tuesday, I went to a training and they were offering, we were talking about giving students some choice on how they reflect. And so they can type out their answers, or they can make a video today on their reflection, and we'll see how that works. Now, next week, this is what's happening. So we're going to continue our unit on economics. We're going to do notes, which is kind of finishing off our slide deck. I'm going to show that to you in a second, of the kind of basic vocabulary style notes of what is economics. We're then going to get into the history of economics, and that's going to be our main focus throughout the rest of the unit. So we're starting in Mesopotamia. We're going to talk about trade. There's a reading we're going to do. There's a map that we're going to work with. There's some notes that they're going to take off of this reading. There's some graded questions that go with that. That'll happen kind of midweek next week. We're going to play another game called the Mesopotamian Trade Game, where students are working as Mesopotamian cities. So there'll be Ur and Babylon and Ashur and Nippur and all of these different cities around the Mesopotamian region. And they have different resources in their home, and they have to trade those resources, similar to what we did in the barter bag game, trade those resources to get further down their civilization. They're going down their civilization chart. So they're starting with agriculture, and then they work into government, and then they work into art, all the way up into art. And so that's that game. That will take a couple of days to work on that, and then there's a graded reflection that happens after that. From there, we will continue talking about things like the Silk Road, the gold and salt trade in West Africa, and finish off this unit. It's a pretty quick unit, economics, not one that takes many, many weeks, probably 3 weeks total, maybe 3.5, depending on how things go. So that's what we are doing. I'll just give you a quick look-see over here at our slide deck. Again, this is on Canvas. Students have access to it. It kind of acts as an at-home guide for you. You can kind of see down the side what we're going to be working through kind of in that order. So you can see types of economies and trades, and then we're getting into the different places around the world. And this is kind of like an online textbook. So if your student is kind of struggling with not being able to talk about what's happening in school, coming here and going, oh, do you understand the different 4 types of economies? This is going to be on the end of unit check. You need to understand what these 4 are and how they're different and how they're similar, those kinds of things. Getting into supply and demand, what does that kind of mean? What does trade look like? We're going to be talking a little bit about the Roman trade networks, that kind of stuff. So that's what's going on. If you have any questions or if you have any concerns, please let me know. And if not, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.